Some stories don't begin the way people expect them to. They don't open with betrayal. They don't start with secrets whispered behind closed doors. They don't announce themselves with lies, slammed doors, or shattered vows. Some stories begin with something far quieter. They begin with silence. Before we continue, pause for just a moment. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Not because these stories are shocking, not because they're sensational, but because they are honest. What you hear here isn't fiction created to entertain you for a few minutes and then fade. These are reflections of real lives, real choices, real mistakes, and real emotions people are too afraid to admit out loud. If you've ever felt invisible while standing right in the middle of your own life, if you've ever reached a moment where one decision could undo everything you've built, if you've ever ignored a quiet warning inside you, hoping it would disappear, then listen carefully. This story is for you. Because no one wakes up one morning planning to destroy their life. No one opens their eyes and thinks, today I will become the villain in someone else's story. And yet, that's exactly how it happens. Not through intention, but through moments. Ordinary momentos. Life has a cruel habit of disguising its turning points as routine days. They don't arrive with thunder or dramatic music. They don't pause time or send warnings. They don't label themselves as the day everything changes. They slip into your life. Quietly. They blend in. They feel harmless. And only later, much later, do you realize that nothing has been the same since. The day Ethan came back into my life was exactly like that. It was an ordinary afternoon. Forgettable. The kind that dissolves into memory before the sun even sets. Soft sunlight filtered through thin curtains, catching dust in the air. The particles floated slowly, lazily, as if even time itself had decided not to rush. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. There's a difference between silence that soothes and silence that weighs on you. This was the second kind. The kind that exists when two people share a home, but no longer share a life. My husband, Kareem, had already left for work. He always left early. Efficient. Focused. Distracted. Over the years, his responsibilities had multiplied. Or maybe they hadn't multiplied at all. Maybe they had simply replaced the space where intimacy used to live. That morning felt no different. Except for one thing. Ethan was back. Ethan was Kareem's son from his first marriage. 25 years old. Intelligent. Quiet. He had the kind of presence that made you feel seen even when he said nothing. Watchful. Observant. As if he noticed details other people missed, but chose not to mention them. He had returned after a breakup. Not the dramatic kind. No shouting. No accusations. Just the slow, hollow kind that drains you from the inside out. Kareem mentioned it casually one morning, as if he were commenting on the weather. Ethan's going to stay with us for a while, he said, already scrolling through his phone. There was no discussion. No pause to ask how I felt. No acknowledgement that the balance of our home was about to change. And just like that, it did. At first, everything was polite. Too polite. Ethan and I moved around each other carefully, like strangers sharing borrowed space. Conversations were brief, respectful, neutral. Boundaries existed, even if they were never spoken aloud. We both understood something instinctively. Too much familiarity could lead somewhere dangerous. He was kind but distant. I was courteous but guarded. Because peace in a household often survives on what goes unsaid. I told myself this arrangement was temporary. That he would heal. That he would leave. That nothing would change. I was wrong. That afternoon, I was in my bedroom preparing for another formal gathering. Another obligation. Another performance. Kareem insisted we attend. Another event tied to work, appearances, expectations. Dresses were scattered across the bed. One by one, I picked them up and rejected them. Too tight. Too dull. Too unfamiliar. Each one felt like it belonged to someone I no longer recognized. Lost in thought, I didn't hear the door open. A voice broke the silence. Care. The word stopped halfway. I turned. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway. For one suspended second, neither of us moved. Confusion crossed his face. Then embarrassment. Then panic. He turned away so quickly he nearly lost his balance. I'm sorry, he muttered, already pulling the door shut. And just like that, it was over. Nothing inappropriate happened. Nothing intentional. Nothing that could be explained out loud. But something shifted. I stood there, heart racing, face burning, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down I knew better. From that moment on, Ethan's presence felt heavier. Not threatening. Just noticeable. I became aware of his footsteps in the hallway. His voice drifting from another room. The spaces he occupied. And I hated myself for noticing. I hated how something so small could disturb the fragile order I had carefully built around my life. Kareem noticed nothing. Ethan needs time, he said one evening, barely looking up from his phone. He'll stay as long as he needs. I nodded. I always nodded. Ethan, unlike his father, listened more than he spoke. Where Kareem filled silence with schedules and obligations, Ethan respected it. Where Kareem spoke in absolutes, Ethan observed in questions. And that difference mattered more than I wanted to admit. One night, Kareem worked late. Ethan and I ate dinner together for the first time. Halfway through the meal, he spoke quietly. She left, he said. No bitternis. No anger. Just exhaustion. No drama. No fight. She found someone else. I offered sympathy. He accepted it with tired gratitude. Something softened between us. After that night, conversation came easier. Still careful. Still restrained. But honest. We avoided being alone together. Or at least we tried. But avoidance has a way of drawing attention to exactly what it hides. One evening, Kareem called again. I'll be late. The house felt unnaturally quiet. Ethan sat on the couch, flipping through channels. Want to watch something? He asked. We sat far apart. Then both our hands reached for the remote. They brushed. He pulled back instantly. It's fine, I said. But my voice betrayed me. Nothing happened. And yet, everything had already changed.